Hello and welcome to Top Story. Today, whatever happens to the hopes for the Democratic Republic of Congo? Last year's elections, which were won by President Laurent Kabila, were trumpeted as a triumph for democracy and an opportunity for the DRC to break free at last from 40 years of violence, corruption and economic freefall. 1 year on, though, the hopes are beginning to look misplaced. Nowhere more tragically so than in the eastern provinces of North and South Kivu. Instead of peace, the region is again convulsed in violence of horrific savagery. Fighting between rival militias and ethnic groups has displaced hundreds of thousands from their homes. Despite the presence of 17,000 peacekeepers, the largest UN force in the world, observers say the Congolese army and militias are behaving with a brutality that is beyond control. The level of violence against women in particular is unprecedented, with 27,000 sexual assaults recorded in South Kivu alone last year. Well, joining me now to shed light on why it has all gone so horribly wrong in the eastern Congo is Alexandre Branjon, who's a journalist at Radio France International and a specialist on the Democratic Republic of Congo. Alexandre, thanks very much for being on Top Story. First of all, why has it all gone so horribly wrong? It's only a few months since the election where everybody's saying, what a good thing has happened in the Democratic Republic of Congo. And the idea was that these militias would be incorporated into the army. But in eastern Congo, at least, that just doesn't seem to be happening.
Mm-hmm. It's true that 2006 was a year of great hopes for all the Congolese, especially in eastern Congo. As you said, the North Kivu province and South Kivu province, people went voting there massively, voted for Kabila in the hopes that he would restore security. Their main problem over there is really security. Lack of security because they are attacked by different groups, Kunda troops, Mai troops, FDLR troops. And a year later, yes, it is disappointing. A lot of this has been shattered and fighting has resumed. At the moment, the main problem is fighting between Kunda troops and the Congolese army. The problem...
370,000 people displaced from their homes since the beginning of this year. Why is it happening? Why suddenly, or perhaps it's not so suddenly, this humanitarian disaster?
No, it's not sudden. I mean, there's been tension between Kunda troops and the Congolese army for months, and Kunda he's a dissident general of the Congolese army. He's a Tutsi, so Rwandaphone. Congolese are Rwandaphone of Rwandan origin, and he had his militia under the peace deal he was expected to send, or not his militia, his army under the peace deal he was expected to send all of his troops to what they call brassage, which is integrating the army. And he has, as many other militias or any other armed groups over there, been reluctant to do so. So it's been a situation that has been dragging on for months, if not years. And this year they try to push him to go into brassage, so that's sending his troops to the army, and he's been against that.
The fighting seems to be marked by particular savagery towards the civilian population as well.
That's true. I mean, in all cases, whether it's Kunda, Mai, Interahamwe, the civilians are always the victims of fighting, because the troops just feed on the people. They arrive in a village, take whatever they want, kill and rape the women, take the women as slaves, sex slaves.
As you said, the sexual violence seems to have been particularly bad in Kivus this year.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any particular reason for that?
For the sex violence being bad? Well, simply because the tension has increased and the fighting has increased. And when you have an army and when you have armed rebel groups roaming around, then simply the level of violence increases and the number of rapes increases.
What's the role of the Congolese army in all this? Because both sides accuse the other of working with the Congolese army against them. The Congolese army almost seems powerless in this, but is that the case?
Well, the Congolese army is just reforming. Basically, what the peace accord was saying is that all different factions should come together and form the Congolese army. So the Congolese army is created by several armed groups, or is based of several arms groups having joined this integrated army. It lacks formation, it lacks the means, it lacks discipline, for one thing. Some are better than others, but in general, yes, it is not a very professional army.
What about the United Nations in all this as well? Because as I was saying earlier on, the largest peacekeeping force in the world, 17,000 UN troops, and yet it seems almost powerless to prevent this happening.
There's a real problem with the mandate of this mission. It's a peacekeeping mission, for one thing. So they will argue, listen, we're here to keep peace. If there's no peace to keep, what can we do? We're not here to interfere, and especially not when this is between Congolese forces. We're not here. This is equal to a civil war. We're not here to interfere between two Congolese forces. Their mandate is also to protect the civilians. So whenever there's, for instance, an attack of FDLR, so those are Rwandan Hutu militias, on the population, then they will interfere and they will have an operation, military operation against them. But when there's fighting between two Congolese troops, they say, listen, it's not our mandate. Second thing also is, do they have the means to fight against those different troops? For instance, if we take the FDLRs, those are militias who've been living in the forest for the last 13 years. They're warriors who are used to living in the bush, having hard living conditions, fighting in those conditions. The troops of the UN are troops that are sent by Pakistan, India, Morocco. They're not elite troops. They're not combat troops. Do they have the means?
They're not adapted to fighting in those conditions.
No, they're not. They're not. They're there. And first of all, they've been sent for a peacekeeping mission. Do they want to do more than a peacekeeping mission? Do they want to interfere? Interfering also means a lot of loss, human losses. So they say, well, that's not our mandate. And even if they would do they have the possibility of doing that? Are they trained in order to conduct a guerrilla warfare?
How much is this conflict now a spin-off from the genocide in Rwanda in 1994?
Well, I mean, there are lots of different localized conflict. One is, yes, there is a part of it is due to the militias who fled, or the Rwandan Hutus who fled Rwanda after the genocide, who ended up in Congo, in the forest of Congo. There they created a political movement, an armed movement, opposition to the current Rwandan president, Paul Kagame. Those groups are part of the different armed groups that are attacking the civilians and who are part of the problem, but they're not the only problem. There are a multitude of different armed groups in the Congo, in eastern Congo.
Now, very, very briefly, is there a danger that this is going to spread into a regional conflict?
Well, there's already tension between Congo and Rwanda. Rwanda is accusing Congo of helping, backing, if not doing nothing against the FDLR, and Congo is accusing Rwanda of helping Nkunda troops, so the tension's already there.
Okay, that's all we have time for today. Thanks very much to Alexandra Prangent of Radio France International. Join us again tomorrow for another edition of Top Story. Goodbye.